What if I told you the most painful moment in this story isn't a breakup, it's a letter? What if I told you hope doesn't always end with an argument? Sometimes it ends with a polite sentence written from far away. Because in this chapter, no one raises their voice, no one says goodbye. Hope simply disappears. A letter arrives from London, carefully written, perfectly civil, and with its very first line, every doubt is erased. They are settled for the winter. He has left the country, and he did not even come to say farewell. For Jane Bennet, that is the moment hope ends, quietly, completely. You will watch a young woman try to convince herself she feels nothing, while her heart does exactly the opposite. You will see kindness mistaken for strength, silence mistaken for peace, and patience mistaken for healing. And beside her stands Elizabeth, angry, clear-eyed, and unwilling to excuse what kindness cannot explain. This chapter asks a question that still hurts today. Is heartbreak caused by cruelty or by weakness? Was love lost because it faded, or because others decided it was inconvenient? As one sister hides her pain behind grace, another begins to lose faith in human character itself. And while London distracts, rumors grow, judgments harden, and one man's absence begins to shape everyone's future. This is not a chapter of drama, it is a chapter of restraint, of letters instead of confessions, of silence instead of truth, of heartbreak that has nowhere to go. Stay with me, because by the end of this chapter, you won't be asking who left, you'll be asking why it was so easy to let her suffer quietly.
The letter arrived quietly, but it ended everything. Miss Bingley's letter left no room for doubt. From the very first line, it was clear. They were settled in London for the winter. Her brother regretted that he had not found time to visit his friends in Hertfordshire before leaving the country. That was all it took. For Jane Bennet, hope was over, completely over. She read the rest of the letter only out of duty. There was little comfort in it. Miss Bingley wrote warmly of her affection, but most of the letter was filled with praise for Miss Darcy, her beauty, her accomplishments, and the growing closeness between them. There was even cheerful talk of new furniture at Mr. Darcy's house. Everything felt settled, final. Elizabeth learned the contents of the letter soon enough. She listened in silence, her heart torn in two, one half aching for her sister, the other burning with anger. She did not believe that Bingley cared for Miss Darcy, of that she was certain, but she could not forgive his weakness, his easy nature, his lack of resolution. He had allowed himself to be guided, perhaps even controlled by the wishes of others, and this time it was not only his happiness that had been sacrificed, it was Jane's. Elizabeth turned the matter over in her mind again and again. Had his feelings truly faded, or had they been suppressed by his sisters and his influential friend? Had he known of Jane's affection, or had he never understood it at all? No matter the answer, the result was the same. Jane was hurt, and deeply. For a day or two, Jane said nothing. Then one afternoon, when their mother had finally left them alone after complaining yet again about Netherfield and its absent master, Jane spoke. She wished only that her mother had more control over herself. The constant remarks caused her pain, but she insisted it would pass. He would be forgotten. Everything would return to how it once was. Elizabeth looked at her with concern, but said nothing. Jane noticed. She assured Elizabeth that she had nothing to hope for and nothing to fear. She blamed no one. She thanked God that she had at least been spared humiliation. With time, she believed she would recover. She even comforted herself by saying it had been nothing more than a mistake of feeling, an error that had harmed no one but herself. Elizabeth could hardly bear it. She told Jane that her goodness was almost beyond belief. Jane denied any special merit and praised Elizabeth's affection instead. Elizabeth would not allow it. She spoke honestly. She confessed her growing disappointment in the world, how little trust could be placed in appearances, how often people failed in consistency and courage. She mentioned 2 recent examples she could not understand, one of them being Charlotte's marriage. Jane urged her not to judge so harshly. She asked Elizabeth to consider differences in situation and temperament. Charlotte had acted prudently. Mr. Collins was respectable. The match was advantageous. Elizabeth refused to soften her view. She insisted that selfishness should not be confused with wisdom, nor emotional numbness with happiness. Elizabeth listened patiently, then gently turned the conversation back to Bingley. She begged Elizabeth not to think ill of him or his sisters. She believed there was far less design in the world than people imagined. Often, disappointment came from vanity rather than intention. Elizabeth disagreed, but she stopped herself. She admitted that while Bingley might not have acted with cruelty, his lack of firmness had caused real misery. Jane could not be persuaded to believe his sisters had interfered. She preferred a kindest explanation, that nothing had ever truly existed. Elizabeth gave way. From that moment on, Bingley's name was scarcely mentioned between them. Mrs. Bennet, however, spoke of nothing else. She complained endlessly of his absence, and comforted herself only with the hope that he would return in the summer. Mr. Bennet treated the matter lightly. He joked that being crossed in love was a useful experience for a young woman. He teased Elizabeth about when her own disappointment might arrive. Elizabeth answered him with dry humor. Meanwhile, the presence of Mr. Wickham provided a welcome distraction. His easy manner and openness were well received. His story, his grievances against Mr. Darcy, was discussed freely, and soon everyone in Hertfordshire felt confirmed in their dislike of Darcy. Only Jane remained cautious. She believed there might be circumstances unknown to them all. Her gentle nature always urged charity and restraint, but her voice was alone. To everyone else, judgment had already been passed. And so this chapter ends not with confrontation, not with farewell, but with quiet wounds, unanswered questions, and a love that fades not because it was denied, but because it was never defended.